Welcome back, everybody, to the A Little Less Fear podcast, the Dr. Lino Show. Today, I would love to welcome Annie Delre. As a nationally board certified health and wellness coach, she is passionate about helping her clients achieve a life of confidence, wellness, and success. Simply put, her clients rock. They come from all walks of life with diverse backgrounds and experiences, but they share a common desire to improve their wellness and kick butt at life. I love this. Welcome to A Little Less Fear podcast, Annie. Nice to meet you.
Thanks for having me. I'm really happy to be here.
So awesome. Hey, so tell us about your journey. What brought you to where you're at today?
Woo! All right. So, number one, I grew up in a strict Catholic home.
Oh my goodness, me too.
Okay. So I was just going to say, and a lot of people have, or at least some type of religion. So when they hear that, immediately they're like, oh my gosh, me too. I know what that's like, right? Especially if you're not a Catholic adult. So for example, I don't practice Catholicism. So life is different than how you were raised, very strict.
Absolutely.
So I came from that family, and I had 3 brothers. And unfortunately, 2 of them suffered from addiction. So I started early learning the idea of you can all be in the same environment and it's different, like nurture versus nature. What is going on? That's essentially what I was always asking. What is going on? Like, I don't understand. And I guess I don't have to tell you, though, in Catholicism, the answer is go to a priest and talk to him. And that's it.
Right. Go to or confess your sins.
That's it. That's the answer. You're a sinner. You're forever a sinner. You'll probably burn in hell. Oh, excuse me. I don't know if I can say that word.
Yeah, you can say that.
Okay. Even the idea of you're not allowed to love who you love. Like, even the thing that of everything. Like, I had so many questions. I was like, you can't be you can't have sex before marriage. Like, and just little things, or you're not supposed to use protection. Like, wait, what are you saying? I was so confused.
Right, exactly.
So that was happening, just a lot of confusion. And we didn't talk about things. You didn't talk about addiction. You didn't talk about mental health. All you talked about was praying and talking to a priest. And that wasn't the answer for me. So, also, my parents didn't believe in therapy. So it took till I was 18 to get into therapy on my own and pay for it on my own. Thankfully, they believe in it now. But so that was the beginning. And then my sisters were born. They're 12 years younger than me. The love of my lives. Like, obsession was made. The word obsession was made because of my feelings for these 2 gals. They're my everything. And I think that's what led me to truly want to be my best self. How can you be a role model? How can you be inspiring? How can you really teach someone you can do whatever you want?
Yeah.
And don't listen to the haters, essentially. Like, you got this.
Right. Yeah, you do got this.
So that's that. That was what I wanted to share.
So what happened after that?
So then I went and studied psychology for my bachelor's. And that's when I gained clarity of the difference between therapy and coaching. And when I learned the difference, I was like, oh, coaching is totally it. Because although I came from a family with a lot of trauma and let's say childhood trauma, I knew my heart wasn't, not that my heart wasn't for that population, because my heart goes out to them, but that who was not who I was going to best serve. That there were other people that would be better serving that population.
What did you find the difference was between therapy and coaching?
Number one, the trauma aspect. So, for example, I'm a survivor of childhood sex abuse. I knew I couldn't touch on that subject with others. I knew I was still in my journey and I wouldn't be able to hold space for them in the way that they deserved. Another one was addiction. It's too close to home. It's way too close to home. And like 2 years ago, my brother overdosed and was poisoned with fentanyl. I couldn't talk about that with people. And I think it's selfish for people to work with others when you're not able to hold the correct space for them. If anything, it can cause more damage to the other person.
Absolutely. Yes. I
So,
feel that.
and then learning the difference. So therapy is coping with the present, unpacking the past, healing from the past. Not that there's not forward movement, but they really want to process the past. While coaching, we talk about the present. All we care about is the future. All we care about is action steps and goals for the most part.
Hmm.
And when you live in trauma, when you experience trauma, when you watch trauma every day, I really wanted that forward movement.
Yeah, absolutely. I love how you made that comparison because it totally makes sense. You can either, especially if you're not healed, like you were saying, you're gonna be trapped in your own emotions and trying to help other people when you're still trapped in your own emotions. It's actually not fair to yourself and not fair to them. But when you're doing coaching, you're able to kind of push forward and bring in a totally different vibe than you would in therapy.
Exactly.
Higher
Exact.
vibes.
Higher vibes. And a lot of, unfortunately, sometimes in therapy, it's easier to stay in victim mode. The
Yeah.
woe is me. Oh, and living by your diagnosis. So, or diagnoses. So I do think a diagnosis plays a part. I think that brings a lot of people actually peace of mind in putting words to how they're feeling.
Hmm.
But I also think that cripples a lot of people. Oh, I'm like that because I'm bipolar. Well, I'm bipolar. So I'm bipolar. Or
Yeah.
I have PTSD. I'm always going to be like this, which
Exactly.
I'm not discounting what happened to you.
Sure.
Of course, that is, I appreciate, them sharing that with me. But I unfortunately feel some therapists enable their clients or patients to stay stuck.
I can see that, and also coming from a psychology, I have my master's and my doctorate in psychology myself. But what I see is that a lot of psychologists they're not aware that they are kind of continuing the cycle too. It's like they're also in a cycle themselves. So it almost like robotic like. So I think that it would take awareness on both sides to really make that shift. And but it's possible. And I totally agree that if you give somebody a diagnosis that a lot of people can stay stuck in that diagnosis. I mean, I can say that firsthand because I was diagnosed with a crazy disease, but I was able to, and I believe that anyone can do this, where you could change the narrative and start believing your new story and start believing in the wellness of your body and your cells. Your body is meant to thrive. It's not meant to stay stick. It doesn't want to. Did I just say stick? Your body's not meant to stay sick. It doesn't
Yeah.
want to be sick. It wants to be well. It was born to be well. And when you start to believe in the wellness of your cells and your organs and everything working in perfect synchronicity and in harmony, you will start to uplift yourself and in turn you start to uplift others. And it just becomes a very beautiful life after that. So
Yeah.
tell us, how did you get involved into getting nationally board certified in health and wellness? How did you make that shift?
Okay. So I was graduating with my bachelor, or yeah, I was graduating with my bachelor's, and essentially they're like, go be a therapist. That was everyone's answer. Go be a therapist. And I was like, oh, I don't really want to. I think it's amazing. I don't mind teaching everything, but like I mentioned, like that's not what the universe is calling me to do.
Hmm.
And so I started talking about coaching. I started looking it up. Everyone thought I was insane. They're like, what is coaching? A life coach? Like everyone was poo-pooing it. They're like, no, that's not realistic. That and as I mentioned about my sisters, um I'm very into teaching empowerment, especially for women empowerment of you got this. You don't have to be a homemaker if you don't want to be. Like
Right,
you don't have to get married if you don't. You don't have to have kids if you don't.
right, right.
Where was I going with that?
Yeah, how you
Oh,
how you
okay.
decided to become a health and wellness coach.
So, so this is where I got off my journey a little. So I was
Sure.
like, okay, I want money. I want freedom. And let's just be honest, money equals freedom in one sense.
Totally.
So I was like, all right, you'll go be a speech language pathologist. You'll do coaching on the side. Coaching is your passion, it's your love, but you won't worry about making money through it. You'll have this stable career of speech language pathology. So I leave Jersey and I go to California to do a program. My first semester, I'm like, this is the most boring thing I have ever done. Like, this is, and I love being a student. So I knew something was wrong, because when you love learning and then you're bored all the time, you realize this isn't it.
Yeah.
Um, so I quit and worked jobs that I probably shouldn't have, but I just needed to make money. I started getting certified in a bunch of things. And then I found a master's program titled Integrative Wellness Coaching.
I love that.
And I was like, and I hadn't seen it anywhere. There's plenty of certifications online, but there was no master's programs.
Mm-hmm.
And I jumped on it. I started working at the university as an admissions counselor, so they'd help pay for school. And I just made it my life.
Beautiful. So you felt that that was naturally, intuitively your calling the minute you saw it and you went for it.
Definitely.
So then, how did the
Definitely.
passion begin? When did the passion begin? Was it when you were done graduating and you were certified, or was it in the middle of training that you started realizing, hey, I can really help clients. I can turn people's lives around. I mean, when did that feeling start?
Um, I think I knew this even in my bachelor's, or I started at community college. So I guess technically while I was earning my associates,
Mm-hmm.
um, I had the gift of the gab. Let's just call it that if you can't tell. And people would say, like, I feel safe around you. They'd admit things to me that they wouldn't admit to others. They would say, um, how are you getting all of this intuitively? Like,
Mm-hmm.
so I knew working with people was what I wanted to do, but um this was around 2010. So people didn't really believe in coaching. Not that they didn't believe, but they thought a sports coach,
Yeah.
or they thought you're a quack, or like you're a whack job and you're calling yourself a life coach.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't really respected. Even today, it's not exactly respected by all.
I think it
So,
is. I think it's respected.
oh yeah.
Totally. Absolutely.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, and it's absolutely respected because you're in your own power. So as long as you're in your own power, it's going to be respected because you're respecting yourself enough to share your light with the world. And that's what makes it respectful. And that's what makes it really beautiful. And just as you said, you had the gift of the gab. You already knew what you were naturally gifted at and you went for your natural gifts. And
Mhm.
that's full respect right there. So right on, Annie. Right on. So then tell us, how do you help your clients? So now you've got your health and wellness business, correct?
Yes. Mhm.
And you've got clients. How did you start getting clients and how do you help them?
I started getting clients because I started working for mental health companies.
Whoa, okay.
So, I got a ton of clients. In the last 3 years, I've probably worked with 500 to 600 people.
That's a heck of a lot.
That's a heck of a lot of people. I've seen and heard a lot of things.
Yeah, I can imagine. You know what's interesting about that? You said that you got these clients from working in the mental health, getting them
Mhm.
from mental health, and that's what you originally got your bachelor's degree in.
Yeah,
So it all worked out. It's like the path was already showing itself and you were just going for it.
that's exactly it. And I just trusted in the universe. I trusted that it would provide, that the path would eventually present itself.
I love how you said that. You trusted in the universe. And then the after you trusted in the universe, the path showed itself.
Mhm. Yeah,
That's powerful. I love it.
good.
And
Write
so
it
now your
down.
clients, so how do you help your clients?
So I would say the number one thing is their stress management. No matter what other area, even if it's a financial goal,
Uh-huh.
even if it's a physical health goal, it really comes down to the stress that they're feeling that's crippling them from next steps.
So first you identify the stress that's crippling them, and what do you do after that?
Well, actually, first, what I would do is teach them about the wellness wheel.
Oh,
Um,
what's the wellness wheel?
Imagine a pizza, essentially, a
Uh-huh.
pizza with different slices of life. So, financial,
Ooh. That's
physical,
uh-huh.
environment, relationships. And I allow them to do a score of 1 to 10, 10 being optimal, one being, I want to rate this a 0, but I'll rate it a 1.
Uh-huh.
um, and allow them to pick which area they'd like to focus on first.
Okay.
Um, But again, usually whatever that area is, the root cause is stress.
So the root cause, is it always stress?
I wouldn't say always, but a lot of times that is, if they were to handle stress, they would thrive in other areas more easily.
I'm thinking if because of the because of the topic of the podcast, a little less fear, is stress also in relation to fear?
Oh, definitely.
Okay.
There
Yeah.
definitely the
Absolutely,
fear
huh?
of failure. That's a big one. So they're
Yeah.
so stressed out. I work with a lot of people who are in professional fields. So they would say something such as, I don't raise my hand in meetings. And it's crippling them. They're so fearful that they're going to say the wrong thing. Especially, let's say I work with some women engineers who are minorities. They do not want to talk in meetings. They're surrounded by white guys. They're like, I don't want to say something stupid. I don't want to ask a question. What if I look stupid? And
Hmm.
I said, but what if they, and I'll challenge it. So, for example, like, um, but what if they think you don't know things because you're not asking questions? What would that look like? And they're like, do you think so? And I said, I don't know. I'm literally just asking, what would that look like?
Right.
So digging with people a little more of, also a big thing I like to do is worst case scenarios.
Worst case scenario. Could you give an example?
Sure. Well, what if I look stupid in the meeting? We'll go with the hand raise. What if I look stupid in the meeting? Um, okay, so let's say all your colleagues think you're stupid. What does that mean? Well, it means that they may talk about me behind their back. Well, what would happen if they talked behind your back? Well, I wouldn't like that. Why wouldn't you like that? Well, I don't want them to think I'm stupid. What would it mean if you really are stupid? Well, I'm not stupid. Oh, okay. So you realize you're not stupid.
I love that. So basically, you just break it down for them. Keep
Yeah.
breaking it down.
Just keep breaking it down and
Yeah.
challenge and challenge. Well, what would it mean if blank? And what would that mean? And what would
Right.
that mean? And essentially, what I want them to know is you will not die after raising your hand,
Hmm.
because that's like our animalistic instinct, right? Like we think worst case scenario, but at the end of the day, we're all
Yeah.
dying, first of all.
Yeah.
But this
Yeah.
extreme fear, let's challenge that.
And failure is not fatal.
That's a beautiful, yeah. I'm going to start saying that.
Yeah. Failure is not fatal, and success is not final. So you might as well just keep going.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so you have this incredible wellness wheel. It's like a pizza. Slices are your slices of life. The root causes stress. So then they start going through this pizza wheel, this wellness wheel, and what happens when you're completely done with the entire wheel?
So I'll ask them which area they want to focus on.
Hmm.
But I'll also share with them that a lot of times when people think of goals, they think, what am I the worst at? I have to do that. I have to do that. But I share, it could be what's your biggest challenge? It could be what have you been struggling with the longest? It can be what sounds most fun right now. It
Hmm.
could be what sounds the easiest right now. It and I feel that brings a lot of pressure off people when they're like, "Oh, let's start with something more fun. Let's start with something more fun."
Yeah.
And that builds confidence, and that's a big one. I should have mentioned those together: stress and confidence.
So when you would let's start with something fun. So when we start with something fun, what type of path does that then take? And how does that, I guess my question is, so let's say for you, right? Let's say I'm your client
Mhm.
and you're asking me, let's start with something fun, correct? Because that's part of my wheel. That's part of the wheel, starting with something fun?
It's recreation can be one of them, but it wouldn't be a specific slice. So for example, let's say I'm trying to think of now the wheel, what it would be under.
Hobbies, passions.
Yeah, but that's not on the wheel. I don't know why I'm totally blanking, but
That's okay.
something fun could be like writing a book. They
Okay.
don't even plan to get money for it. Like
Yeah.
they don't want a book launch. They want to write a book. They always
Yeah.
have.
Uh-huh.
So it's just for fun. Like they don't expect it to build their professional life. They don't expect it to be a bestseller. It's just for fun. But because it's just for fun, because it doesn't lead to money, they don't prioritize it.
I'm wondering if I'm wondering if starting with something fun can actually be something that they prioritize in making into their career.
That's usually what happens.
Yeah, I love it.
That's usually what happens. And
Mm-hmm.
another thing we start with is identifying their values, because that's where they realize the disconnect is. Wow, I'm one of my values is fun and I don't have any fun. Or one of my values is loyalty, yet I continue in a relationship where the person continuously cheats on me. Well, this is why you're unhappy. You are saying one thing, well, cognitive dissonance, right? So you're
Yes.
saying one thing and you're doing another. This is going to lead to pain, shame, guilt, sadness, long-term sadness, depression, anger. So allowing them to even identify that really helps.
I love that. A lot of people don't even know what their values are.
No idea. They know the word, right? It's not
Yeah.
like values is this word, like what the heck, but not
Yeah.
sitting down and identifying.
Because I know, I know that. I mean, not so long ago when I was kind of identifying my own values and stuff, it would even make me a little stuck. Like, well, what are my values? How does one even know what their values are? So I'm gonna ask you that. How does someone begin to figure out what their values are if they haven't asked themselves this question before?
Well, sometimes and this is usually with my male clients, because they, not that women don't like it direct, but the men are like, tell me, you tell me. So what I say is, imagine yourself at your funeral. What do you want people to say? Do you want them to say you're hardworking? Do you want them to say you are loyal, you're hilarious, that you valued knowledge, that you were someone who was always studying? What do you want them to say after you're gone? Or, so men are like, okay, yeah, my funeral. A lot of women do not like that. So what I say, what I say to the women, and not to be sexist, but what I say to the women are, what would you want people to say behind your back that's good?
Ooh, I
And they
like
like
that.
that one.
What would you like people to say behind your back that's good?
But the good stuff, yeah, like good gossip, if there's such thing.
Oh, they're friendly, they're lovable, they're fun. Um, they love bringing
Patient.
people together. They value connection. They love being the life of a party, stuff like that.
Yep, they make me feel good, right? Isn't that the best? Don't you love hearing that about someone? Like, they make me feel good. I like how I feel around them.
Yeah,
Beautiful.
I love that. Awesome. So hey, great, awesome. Thank you for that. So then once you get into, so what happens after this? So what happens towards the end of your working with clients? Is there an end or is it continuous? And is there a time frame?
Great question. Loving these questions. um, Something I tell clients is, I'm happy to sign like 6 weeks, even up to 3 months, but I'm hesitant to sign longer. And that's only because I do not want to cripple them. I don't want them. I'm fine with hand holding in the beginning. But if you're, let's say, not making forward movement, or you want that forever hand holding, that means I didn't empower you enough to do this on your own. That means that I didn't do my job as a coach to give you that confidence to do it. That doesn't mean 6 months from now you can't come back and we work on another goal. It's not that I never want to hear from you again. I love my clients. Um, but for the same reason why someone's in therapy for 15 years continuously, well, that's worrisome.
Hmm.
It's a bit worrisome. Maybe if you took a few months off and you have this, I think everyone should see a therapist at least once in their life, if I'm being honest.
Absolutely, yeah.
But I do share that with them. Like, ideally, this wouldn't be a year contract, which some coaches do a year. Some coaches, that's their minimum.
Yeah, I've seen it. Which makes sense. It's like you have a baby, they're taking their first steps, you're teaching them how to walk from one end to the other, and then at some point you have to let go and trust that they're going to continue on their journey and keep walking tall.
That's exactly it. I'm like, fly from the nest.
Yeah.
Go, spread your wings, and then come back if you want later.
That's beautiful. I love this. So then tell us more about where you see yourself. Oh, you know what? I wanted to talk about time management because I know you're
Okay.
an expert with this too. And is that something that you often hear your clients say they're having a difficult time with time management?
Yeah.
And what about time management? It's like I don't have enough time in the day to do everything that I need to do. Is that kind of what they say?
That feeling like they don't have enough time, or them essentially knowing for a fact that they're not using their time in the best way that would serve them. They just they just know. So, or a lot of times it's they say they don't have time, but what they're doing is spending time on things that it really is the idea of you're spending time on the wrong things. That's why you're not fulfilled.
Yeah, like being
Because
on social media forever or
that is it.
yeah,
That's a huge one.
it is a
One of
huge one.
the If someone's suffering with social media addiction, what the first action that I have them do for homework is unfollow every negative account, unfollow all the news accounts, unfollow all the negative, unfollow that girl from high school that you're jealous of, like who has the bigger house, the hotter boyfriend, and the better car than you. Unfollow her.
Or even just unfollow anybody that's following you where you just feel even like negative energy even if you're not interacting with them. Like why are they even on my page? Like this is a negative energy. I need to get rid of it.
That's exactly it. And they're like, but what if it's not obvious that they're negative? I say the test is, do you smile when you see it?
I
That's the
love
test.
that.
Yeah, as
Do
simple as
you
possible.
smile when you see it?
And a lot of times they don't. They come back to me, they're like, Annie, I unfollowed 100 people. I'm like, yeah, because you're, or the other idea with social media is stop picking up your phone and checking it in the morning. Stop checking the news apps. This is not
I
serving
agree.
you.
I agree with that. I totally agree with that. Yeah, oh man, yeah, definitely.
Oh,
I
yeah.
wait I wait a couple hours before I check my phone and stuff, but that I mean, it took some practice doing that because it got easy in the beginning to get addicted to social media. So it yeah, definitely it could and for a younger generation, I can't imagine how difficult that is for a younger generation. That's their whole life.
That's their whole life. Yeah.
And you're also teaching them and showing them how, the importance of being present by doing that. Because in the present moment, that's really when things start to unfold, and that's when synchronicities happen. That's when magic happens. Magic only happens in the present moment, not in the past, not in the future, not 3 hours from now. It happens right here, right now.
Yes. Mindfulness is a big topic.
How do you?
Mindfulness of your time, right? Where is it even
Yeah,
going?
yeah, exactly. So
Mhm.
what about mothers? I'm sure you work with mothers. Like, how would you help mothers manage time? Because it what I've noticed in my friends that are mothers, it's like their kid becomes their priority and they start lacking taking care of themselves. And they don't have time for themselves. And that's usually the narrative that they tell themselves. So how do you manage to tell these mothers what it's like or what life can be like or how to even start to navigate their life with knowing that it is possible to make time for yourself?
The very first question I ask is, what's your support system? And that essentially answers it all for me right then and there. A big problem is not feeling supported by their partner, or they're separated from their partner.
Or they're single mothers.
That's a big one. And how often do you ask for help? That's it. Those two questions are the go-tos.
Wow,
And
you know what? Even just that question, all my friends that are single mothers, none of them would ask for help.
none of them ask for
No, they don't. They don't.
that's why I ask them, because it's bringing that to awareness of, oh, I don't ask for help, especially if they're mad at their partners. I will say, like, do you ask for help? Um, or they'll be like, I ask all the time, and I'll say, do you ask for help before the resentment is built? Do you ask for help before you're screaming? Do you ask for help before you're telling them they do nothing? Or is it at a breaking point? Because that's a different conversation when you're telling them they're lazy, unhelpful, bad father, like
Oh yeah, and how are they gonna want to step up to the plate after that?
totally. Or they'll be so scared of the woman that they'll be good for a week or two and then go right back to the bad behavior because until they get like a slap on the wrist again. And I really hope I'm not coming off sexist with these things. It's just what I see more often.
I don't feel you're being sexist. I understand that
Okay.
this is coming from your experience with your clients. Definitely.
Okay. Yes, exactly. This is just experience, but also single dads. I really feel for them.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
I really feel for them because what I found with women, they're more than happy to talk about it, but the single dads don't even want to talk about it. They don't even want to.
Why not?
I think they're embarrassed. They think they have to have it together. Especially I find, and this is not just with single dads, but if the men are making less than the women,
Mm-hmm.
they it according to them, it takes a hit to their confidence level.
And what do
So
you tell them about that?
it
I
really
wonder if
depends.
some of that's generational, because I mean, 50 years ago, the man made more money, but nowadays it's almost the opposite or heading towards equal or the opposite. And I feel that a lot of it's like past generational. But
Yeah,
how, I mean, that doesn't help knowing that, but how do you help your male clients with that mental state?
I think the generational one, you're really hitting the nail on the head, hitting the
Yeah.
head, hitting the nail on the head with that. Um, because I'll ask those, who told you that? Because
Yeah,
they're like,
yeah.
as a man, I'm supposed to blank. Who told you that? And they're like, oh, my dad. Oh, the dad that also called you an idiot when you graduated the valedictorian, like,
Hmm.
um, oh, the same dad who told you would amount to nothing. Oh, the same dad who called you overweight. And oh, your grandfather who didn't even grow up in the same like generation as
Yep.
you. Oh, the military parent who blank.
Hmm.
So even asking the question of who told you that I has had so many light switches for people.
Hmm.
Um, but also their background, like I mentioned, military
Hmm.
is a minority. That's a huge one. That's a huge one. Like you're not allowed to cry. You're not allowed to talk about problems. Um,
Right.
sometimes the wives, let's talk about like the Hispanic community because that's where I see it often. They
Oh
can't
yeah.
talk to their wives because their wives tell them to man up.
Hmm.
So when they do open their mouths, they're shut down immediately. So they're like, well, where do I go then? How do I ask for
Yeah.
help? Because
And how do they ask you for help, you being a female?
I just make them feel comfortable. I
That's
just,
awesome.
like,
Yeah.
just make them feel comfortable.
No judgment zone.
That's what I tell them. I was like, and also I have three brothers. Like,
Yeah, right.
nothing you say is going to really surprise me, just so you know.
That's incredible. So basically, you break it down so that they can see where their false beliefs are coming from and how the things they are telling themselves are not even really who they are and doesn't really show them their abilities as a human being.
Yes. And pointing out, is this an original thought? And more times than not, it's not an original thought. It was planted in their head at one point.
What is an original thought?
I got this. I can do it. Right.
Hmm.
Oh, men don't stay at home with their children. I stay at home with my children. Like,
Yeah,
or trying to think of other ones.
that's true.
I don't know. I'm having trouble thinking of a good example.
But that's a great question, though. Is this an original thought? So I'm wondering, like, original thoughts. As I write this down, an original thought, when I think of an original thought right now, as we're just talking about this, would be a thought that doesn't come from fear, a thought that comes more from your inner being, your inner knowing, your deep knowing, and being able to own the thoughts that come in because that is your true intuition and that can't ever be a lie for you. So, an original thought is what's true for you at the core. Does that make sense?
That's perfect. That is perfect.
I love that. Thanks for that.
Fear. I mean, I love how this is the podcast title, or like a little less fear, because fear is what's crippling us.
Well, fear isn't even a reality. The reality is love. All fear are just things that have been piled up from either our ancestral DNA or our experiences or our traumas or our false beliefs or the stories we've created for ourselves. That's all fear. None of that's real. When you break down all fear and you break it all down, at the very bottom is this light of love. And that's the truth.
Mm,
And
yeah.
I really hope and wish and pray that when people hear this podcast and or this episode, it really resonates with them that they are not their fears. You are not your fears. I'm not my fears. That's not who you are. That doesn't define you. Your fears will never define you. The only thing that defines you is your beating heart of love, the golden light that we all have within us. So, man, this has been really incredible. Work life balance, personal growth. Tell us about work life balance.
Woo! All right, let me tell you about because this is a big one. This is a big one. And
Annie, I'm
actually,
gonna be honest. I have issues with that.
okay.
I have major issues with that. It's like I'm working all the time. I'm doing social media, and I'm a poet, and I'm editing, and then I'm getting ready to teach in the fall, and it's like, at some and you know what I love about my bestie, my roommate. He's a hairdresser, and even though he can do 50, 60 hours a week, he knows how to come home and chill the fuck out. He's good at that. And when I see him chilling, I was like, why am I not doing that? He's just like having a grand old time when he comes home. He knows how to really just, I'm home. It's time to kick off the shoes and be me. And
Mm-hmm.
so I think that's one of my challenges as well. So how do you help people with this? Is huge.
Yeah, great question. I um it starts with mindset, like all things. So the simplest mindset shift is changing the verbiage. So let's take the word balance out,
Okay.
and we're subbing that with harmony. And I heard you use that word earlier. I love that word.
Okay.
So balance is usually 50-50.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, do you want to spend 50% of your life working and 50% of your life with family, friends, and your passions? And sometimes the passions intertwine with work, but kind of like what I was
Yes.
talking about at the funeral. If someone has kids, do you want your kids to walk up and say, well, they were there sometimes, but he spent a lot of his time at work. Yeah, I only saw him 50% of the time.
No.
No, no. As I mentioned, of the hundreds of clients I've had, I could think of two that told me they want more work,
Uh huh.
and they had zero friends and family. These were people who were
Oh
just
my
didn't.
gosh.
So,
I
um,
hear that often as well. So instead of work life balance, work life harmony?
yes. How are we making this harmonious? How can we make this harmonious? How can you not feel burnt out? How can you feel like you're not going? So your roommate's a great example. He has the not the pleasure. Something that's something that's working for him, I guess is a way to say it, is he gets to leave the physical location, right? He goes to a physical
He
location
does.
for work. But nowadays, a lot of people work from home. So it's really hard because then so one of the things I encourage is get a specific space for where you work.
Mhm.
But that's hard. Sometimes people only have their kitchen counter. They only have their um
Right.
couch. Some people don't even have that because they have roommates. So they only have their bed. They don't even have a desk in their room.
Sheesh.
So
Right.
coming up with solutions of, okay, do you have to be on the phone? Why don't you go to the library for a little bit, or a quiet coffee shop? Um, or you and your roommate work from home. Why don't you switch every other day who goes in the living room or the kitchen? Or why don't you have a small room? Let's look up a small desk that you can put in the corner, and you can hang things on the corner, and this is your study part, or this is your work zone.
Mhm.
um and what's it like to unplug? Okay, this is really hard for the people who check their email a lot, or the company culture is to be on.
Yeah.
And that's where values come back as well. Do you value free time, Or do you value your family? A lot of times that gets people. Do you value your family? And they're like, oh, of course I do. And I'm like, okay, I'm not saying you don't. But let's say like being on your phone all night while your 2-year-old's trying to talk to you, and this is like a very big developmental stage, and you're not making eye contact or speaking
Oh,
to them, that's going to affect them. Like, I'm sorry to
it
be the
is.
one to share, but
It is.
mhm.
Because I even have this issue with my cat. I mean, I have a very needy cat. Right now he's napping, but I will be working in my office. And this is my office here, and and I'm here a lot, and he wants so much attention, and then I start to feel bad. And I start to realize maybe it's because I'm not giving him enough attention, and I'm just work, 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 work. And he's literally telling me, "Hey, man, I'm right here. Like, hello, do I exist? Do I
Give
exist?
love, give
Yeah,
me attention.
yeah, totally."
Yeah, and pets are amazing because they have unconditional love.
They do. Yeah, he's forgiving for
They're
sure.
forgiving. Yes, they're
Yeah.
forgiving.
And so in shifting your client's way of viewing their workspace, whether they work at home or seeing their values or what they need to prioritize, that starts to create more of a harmony instead of a balance. Because when you were saying balance and something that made me feel when you said 50-50, life is never 50-50. So we're trying to
Why
achieve
are we reaching?
something that's never going to be reachable, period. It's never going to be reachable.
Exactly.
Not in
You
anything, not
driving
in
yourself.
relationships, not in your diet, not in your work. I mean, life happens. So you have to be kind of just go more with the flow of life. And that's harmony.
I can't stop talking over you because I'm so excited that you're saying this. Yeah. That's exactly it. Yes.
Being more in flow state, being more with the flow creates harmony. And in changing your environment, as you were saying, if you live in a house with roommates, can we switch, you go into the living room and I go in my room, or you go to a coffee shop? That's creating a different flow, and that's creating flow state, that's creating a harmonious path. That's really
Hmm.
beautiful. I love that.
And as you mentioned the idea of before of living in the present. So
Yes.
what can you do now? That's staying in the flow. That is
What can
either.
you do now to stay in the flow of harmony?
Hmm. So a lot of people will be like, oh, when my kid starts preschool, or oh, when
Right.
my ex moves out, or when I buy a new house, or when I start school, I'll do this.
I hear that a lot. Or once my kid goes back to school, then I'll start exercising. It's like, whoa, why wait?
Well, you got 5 minutes now. Right. Yeah.
Sure. So what do you
Yeah.
tell them? Let's say a client says, "Well, when my kid goes back to school, I'll start exercising."
So I would say something such as, what would it look like if you started now? And which comes back to timing, because one of the things I make them do is time block.
Mm-hmm.
So time blocking their schedule. And also I love pizza pies because I love visualizations, I should say. So I'll have them somewhat do a pie chart of, let's break down your day into percentages. What percentage would you spend with kids, by yourself, for work, um, on your physical health, on fun? What percentage realistically? And that can change each day of the week, right? Especially, let's say, um,
Yeah, totally.
you share custody, or Tuesdays are your longer day at work. So allowing them to break down their schedule to say, do you really not have time for working out? Or even again, the mindset shift of, it doesn't have to be 45 minutes at the gym. What you can do is keep weights next to your couch, and when you're sitting there binging Netflix, just a few reps. I do that. That's how I do it. Just a few reps. Or you want to spend more time with your kids? What about a 10-minute walk around your neighborhood?
Mhm. I love that. So basically, you show them that there's a lot more flexibility than the rigidity that they're giving themselves in their lives.
Yes, that's the word, flexibility. And with all things, it,
Yes, absolutely. You have to be
Life,
flexible.
yes. I repeat often to people of it's life isn't all or nothing. It's not meant to be all or nothing.
Exactly. Life isn't black and white, and which is why allowing the colors is allowing life to be flexible the way colors are. Colors are in and out all around us, changing, just like the seasons are, and they're flexible and they're not complaining.
Mhm. Yeah, right.
They're going with the flow of life.
They really are. I know animals and plants we can learn so much from.
Beautiful. This has been really awesome. Really, it pumps me up. I'm feeling motivated. Thanks for sharing all of your incredible lightning energy, your incredible wisdom light with the world. How can our viewers, our watchers, and our listeners get a hold of you if they need a health and wellness coach?
I I would say write to my website,
Okay, great.
anniedelre.com. Yeah.
AnnieDelre.com, ANNIEDELRE.com. Correct?
Yes. Oh yeah. Confirmed. Yes.
Awesome. Annie Del Rey, everybody, this has been really a blessing. Thanks so much for tuning in to A Little Less Fear podcast. I wish you and all of your clients an incredible success and a beautiful light of love. You have an incredible rest of your day now.
Thank you. You too. Thank you again.
It's been my pleasure. You're welcome.